So, hello, I will wait for more people to join. But when you come in, feel free to drop your name in the chat and where you're from. If you're a part of the Love Undone team, feel free to let us know what your role is on Love Undone, whether you're an actor or part of the crew or one of the producers. Leave your name and affiliation. If you're not a part of the show, where you are watching from. Leave that in the comments. Hey, Jazz. I am excited to share and excited for any questions that anyone may have on where things stand, where we're going. I'll wait for more people to come in, but again, feel free to drop your name in the chat, where you're from. If you're not a part of the Love Undone team, but if you are, feel free to let us know where you are watching from or your role or affiliation with the show. We'll give it a couple more minutes. Hey, Shaquita Pearl. So we will get started in 1 minute. All right, let's get started. And then if more people join, as always, I'll back up and repeat things. But for those who don't know me, my name is Joseph. I'm the creator of Love Undone. Welcome to I think this is our fourth creator chat, which is a time for us to spend together to talk all things Love Undone. In this case, our third and final season of Love Undone. If this is your first creator chat or this is your first time hearing that, yes, we are coming back for a third and final season, wrapping up this universe that we've created with these characters that I hope you've come to love over the last 7 years if you've been with us since Unconditional Love, or since 2021 if you've been with us since Love Undone. So as I said, we are here to talk about Love Undone. Feel free to drop any questions you may have in the chat, and I'll make sure I get to those. I want to make sure that we answer any questions you may have, what you want to know, as much as I can tell you, and where sort of things are with our final season. Hoping to drop some updates today on what a possible timeline looks like for the next season, and where things are going and what you can kind of expect. So firstly, just want to say, again, if this is your first chat and you don't know sort of where things are, we have been crowdfunding since March. So that's about, I think, 5 months we've been going strong with this crowdfunding campaign to raise funds, as we always do, to produce our final season. And I get a lot of questions about, like, why do you need to raise money, or what is producing a series look like? I'm getting that more often, I find, in the last year than I have anytime that I've produced this series. But as you go on and as you develop stories and as you create seasons, you obviously want more for the seasons you create and the characters you create, the worlds you build. If you've watched Love Undone since the first season, we've sort of built out the world with characters and their families and their friends. Anybody who knows me personally, I like to know what the person who is in the corner is doing, which is why we have a spinoff, right? I wanted to know about what was Cameron's life like? What was Tori's life like? What was Juanita? We had seen one side of her with her son, but like, what is she up to? Same thing with Rufus. So really building out that world. And as you get to see more seasons, it comes with more costs for production, which is why we are crowdfunding and hoping that folks will help us produce our season. Most of it does come out of my own pocket. So anything that we don't raise, because I believe in the show so much, because I believe in the people behind it, we try to rely on as much as support that we can receive throughout our crowdfunding process. So the reason I bring that up is because our phase one deadline for our crowdfunding campaign is September 22nd. So September 22nd is our phase one deadline to reach our 10K goal to be able to move to the next phase in our production. And I don't like to say dates because things change all the time, and unfortunately, you can't really control what you sort of set out to do because there are many factors. However, in this goal, in this plan that I've developed, I hope to be back on set a year from today. So in the summer of 2025, I hope to be back on set producing our final season so that we can get it to you then. However, that all depends on how things go with our crowdfunding campaign and the support that we receive. But September 22nd is our phase one goal on our road to 10K. And if you're hearing the road to 10K for the first time, that is our road to our phase one goal, as I've mentioned. And each milestone that we've reached so far, just want to stop and say thank you to every single person who has contributed and who has shared to help us get to this point. We've released sneak peeks from our final season. So our first one was Dustin, our second one was Tori, our third sneak peek was Juanita, then we did Elijah, then we just dropped a Lori one, which I hope you all checked out. It's on all of our social media pages, but also on our YouTube page. For those of you who have been asking for Lori and Tori content, I think you'll be very happy when you read that sneak peek. And then once we hit 6K, we have our Deborah sneak peek. And then once we hit 7K, we'll share some episode titles. I actually just gave the finale a title. It has been untitled since we left the room, but I finally have landed. It came down to two. I've landed on one that I think encompasses where this journey has taken us. So I might share that one. Then once we hit 8K, our Sandra sneak peek. 9K, we're actually sharing the shooting script of episode 204. If you remember, that's a season 2 episode. Truth Will Out will give you access to that script that you can keep. And then once we hit 10K, we are sharing an entire page from the first episode of our final season. So you can look forward to that. But again, we are our phase one deadline is September 22nd, and that's sort of where things are with our final season. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, whether it's about season 1 or season 2, or where things are going with our final season. Again, we'll try to answer as much as we can in terms of what's sort of allowable to say for our final season. Oh, and another thing that I mentioned in addition, one thing we always do with our crowdfunding campaigns, if you want to come on and be a producer of the show, we do give producer credit titles. And those, we have two. So an associate producer or an executive producer. You can also find those on our social media pages. But feel free to visit our GoFundMe link as well so that you can see that if you want to get a producer credit, there's a way that you can get a producer credit on our final season. And then last sort of thing I want to plug before we get into some thoughts about where we've gone and where we're going. We do have a newsletter that is So well done by Ron Artist Jr., who's also one of our writers on Love Undone. Check out that newsletter. You'll learn more about folks on our show in our writers' room. And then also, like we did a spotlight on Sandra and Dustin, which was really good. We did a spotlight on Daniel, which actually made me cry. So check out the newsletter. You'll learn more about our team and the people who put their all into creating this show. So if you visit, but again, I always include this in the description. So if you're watching this after today, you can always go back in any of our descriptions and find those links. It is the letter U LOVE series / newsletter. So again, that is the letter U LOVE series / newsletter. Feel free to check that out. We are gearing up to release volume 4. So there are already 3 volumes. Make sure you check those out. They're really, really, really well done. They're great. And you'll learn more about the process of creating the show. And then you'll learn more about the people, which I think is really important. It's one thing to, sort of dive into the story, but I always enjoy learning about the people creating the show, showing up every day to make it. So check out our newsletter if you haven't already, and make sure you subscribe. We'll keep you up to date on all things Love Undone during our hiatus. But yes, enough about that. Let's get into some Love Undone things. Again, if you have any specific questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But let's start sort of where we left off for season 2. I always like to start with our couples that we've sort of established, whether that's Daniel and Elijah, or Juanita and Gideon, or Lori and Rashad, Tori and maybe Jeremiah. So where things sort of left off, Dustin and Sandra. We sort of left off with a lot of sort of question marks in terms of where things could possibly go, with Juanita trying her best, I would say, to sort of figure out where the next step is going to be with her and Gideon. And I think you see by the end of the season, he's admitting to her that I'm here, I'm serious. I want, to explore the possibility of something with you. But of course, there's always that hesitation with Juanita. And in our final season, we'll sort of explore that more, and sort of figure out, is she gonna finally open herself up the way she wants to, or is she gonna continue to let everything else stand in her way, which is the big thing that we explored throughout the final season, amongst other things, right? We also left off with the big cliffhanger in the school. Things are sort of up in the air on what's going to happen. We know that coming into the final season, she's been given the boot. How do people feel about that, right? So a principal leaving not only affects Juanita, but it affects the students, it affects the community at large, which we'll get some answers on as well. I'll pause there and move to the next couple. Dustin and Sandra, where we left off with them, chaotic season, of course, between the two of them, very chaotic season. But where we left off is finally, they agreed that they're going to make something work. So by the time we end season 2, they are a couple. She says, let's give this a shot. Dustin is crying. He's like professing his love for her. Which a lot of you leaned into, because I think initially, at least for me, I never viewed them as that deep. I knew they had a connection. Like, we had sort of established that, where we ended off at the season, like, okay, they were going to make this work. But a lot of you, like, actually really played into a lot of what Dustin's going to be going through in the final season, in terms of not just only his life, but his relationship. And I just have to say, I stand Dustin and Sandra all the way. But yeah, where we sort of end off with the two of them is that, they agree that they're going to make this work. Is it going to be smooth sailing? I think a lot of what we explore with them in the final season is, now, how do they make this work? Which, if you've watched Love Undone, it's not going to be a walk in the park. How do you make this work? How do I balance the life that I had before you, both Dustin and Sandra, with a lot of family issues with a lot of personal issues. How do we now come together and address that together? Which I think you guys are going to be in for an exciting ride with the two of them. Um, I think by the time you get to the end, it's like, whew, like, yeah, yeah. I'm stopping myself. So Dustin and Sandra, and then we have Elijah and Daniel. More chaos. So as you know, um, Elijah comes in. He takes this job from Daniel, which is sort of the biggest part of their arc in the second season. Now they have to work together, but not only do they have to work together. Now Elijah is sort of Daniel's boss. Which really affects Daniel and brings up some issues in their relationship in terms of, Elijah feels like Daniel doesn't open up to him. Daniel admits that he's scared. And by the end of that conversation, they've now realized that they need to communicate and check in better. So in our final season, we're going to sort of follow that through. Are they checking in? Are they communicating? But then there's this big looming factor that has come in Benjamin Harris. So Benjamin Harris does show up in the finale. There's this very Olivia Pope Fitz hello exchange in the conference room. They hash it out, obviously, because where we left off with Unconditional Love, Daniel was going to Atlanta. And the big question was, is Benjamin going to follow him through to Atlanta? And we sort of get an answer on that in that scene. And then Elijah walks in. So, like, where do we pick up with that? The three of them are left in the conference room. Where do we pick up now that this person who Daniel was very much in love with at one point is now back in the lives of both Daniel and Elijah, and in a workplace capacity, right? And then we have Lori and Rashad, very complex people in a more complex situation. So, as you know, Rashad was married to Tori, and Lori was married to Cameron. Cameron and Tori cheated on their spouses and ended up together. And then we just said, let's pour more chaos on top of chaos. And Lori and Rashad are going to meet on this app. And when they meet, they're going to discover that, hey, these are our exes, but we love each other, or we are feeling each other. I can see a life with this person, possibly. Which is where we sort of explore with the two of them in our final season. It's not going to be easy because the relationships that they previously held, marriages, not just relationship, marriages, they're coming into this relationship with a lot of baggage. And the baby. So if you've watched the finale, spoiler alert, Tori finds out that she's pregnant, and there's sort of this question at the end of the season of who's the daddy, which we will find out in our final season. Actually, in the very first episode, you will find out who is the daddy. So that's sort of where we are in terms of relationships, in terms of possible relationships or possible friendships that we're sort of exploring. There's this Jeremiah and Tori. As you've known, if you've watched this show since Unconditional Love, if you haven't, we still sort of explore that within Love Undone, that the Bell and Hill family grew up together. They're close. All of the siblings are close, whether that's Taylor, Tori, Tasha, and Benjamin are best friends. So it was natural for us to bring Tori and Jeremiah back. And they had a lot to catch up on, but we also explore and find out that they have a lot in common. So throughout this final season, we'll sort of see if Tori has room in her life for anything more than just a friendship, right? Because at this point, that's literally what it is between the two of them. They're reconnecting with each other after so long. But in the final season, we'll sort of see what that looks like for the two of them, right? Is he going to step up and be a support system to her now that she's expecting? It seems like he is. But is he fully ready for what that looks like, or all that comes with that, as Tori is expecting a baby in our final season? So I'll stop there in terms of the relationships. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. As it relates to any of our couples or any of our other characters, if there's a specific character you want to talk about, I love all of our characters. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I do forget. So if there's somebody you want to talk about, feel free to put that in the chat. This is a time for us to talk about all things Love Undone. Um, so I'm trying to think in terms of like the couples. I guess we could talk about some family dynamics as well in terms of in the final season there is a lot to unpack with the Braxtons, with Richard, Rufus, and Linda. There was that big blowout in episode 204, where some secrets were revealed. And the secrets only continue in the final season. What the secret is, I don't think people will see coming, but it's one that I think follows the thread of what we've sort of started in the second season. So a lot of family dynamics too outside of the relationships. Like you'll get a lot of family stuff with Rufus. You'll get a lot of family stuff with the Jones family. So Dustin and Deborah. I am so excited with what we have planned for Deborah. Season two, we sort of scratched the surface with her, but she is a favorite of mine this season. I'm so excited for what we have planned for Deborah. I'm so excited for what we have planned for Lisa. Um, I'm popping up in the final season more than my one little book toss. Shaquan has given me plenty to chew on, um, and I'm very excited about where we're going with that. But Deborah, Lisa, I'm trying to think if there's anyone else that was sort of expanding on. Um, Definitely more with CJ in terms of now there's Rashad in the picture and what that sort of looks like for him, exploring that through his eyes and how he feels. Um, yeah, those are the two big ones that I'm really excited about. Outside of like the core cast, I'm really excited on what we're doing with Lisa and Deborah. Can you explain the older couples? Where did the inspiration come from? What's the inspiration for Juanita's development, Rufus, Gideon? That's a great question. I think for me, it wasn't too much thought that I put into it, quite honestly. When Unconditional Love ended, there were characters that I was really interested in exploring. Um, and that was really the driving force. Juanita was one of those people. We had brought Rufus in at the very end of the season, but I'm like, there's so much story here. Hanae Thomas and I, we put so much in that final season, which was really great. It's one of my favorite things that I've ever produced. But there was a lot more we could do with Rufus, right? He was a supporting character. He played his part. We did what we needed to do with him in Unconditional Love, but I was sort of, like I said, very interested in what his life looked like. We had a backstory with Juanita and Rufus. We had knew a little bit about them, but I was very interested in what their life looked like. They just happened to be of a certain age. It wasn't something that I was intentional about putting to the screen, but I will say, like, what I'm really proud about our show is that we explore all things, right? Whether it's Juanita and Gideon, whether it's Daniel and Elijah, whether it's Lori and Rashad. I feel like there's an aspect of love that you'll find in all ages and all stages of life. Not only romance, because that's clearly the lens of the show, but friendships and family. Love doesn't only have to be with someone that you're in a relationship with romantically. Self-love, self-care. How do you prioritize things for yourself is another thing. That we try to fit in with all of our characters, and that's something I'm really proud of. I'm always long-winded with my answers, but that was the inspiration. It was just wanting to see the lives of these people who came in and made an impact, but were supporting or guest characters on Unconditional Love. That was really like I was literally I said this, which is one of the reasons for the spinoff. I went to sleep one night and literally like woke up and was like, what about Cameron and Tori? Because like we knew he had a baby shower coming up. I feel like we're always doing a baby shower. we had we had a baby shower coming up. We played a bottle episode. I think it might have been way before that as well. But just the idea of Tori and Cameron, um, something about the possibility of them excited me, and I just wanted to know more about them. Like, why is Tori this bitchy sister? Like, why is she like this? What ticks her off? What role does she play in her family? Same thing with Cameron. What role does he play in his family? What does his family look like? Because at that point we really didn't know. He was just Benjamin's crazy best friend, crazy funny best friend. So just really wanting to know more about the characters that we brought on and explored. Oh, thank you so much, Patrick. I love you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Um, so yes, great question, long-winded answer. I hope that answered that. So yes, let's so where we sort of left off in terms of talking about family dynamics as well. Like I said, you'll get more of the Jones, more of the Braxtons. Can't really say where we end up with the Hills, but I would say stay tuned. Stay tuned on where we go with Jeremiah, Daniel, and Juanita. You will get an answer on where things end up for them. We will not leave you hanging with the three of them. There's a very possibly my favorite new character. There is somebody that will pop up this season. Um, that is very, very exciting. Very proud of what we've done with this character that I think you guys will all enjoy and get some answers on why certain people act the way they do. Um, but I think in terms of like all of our new characters, ones that I can talk about because I've already spoke about them on a previous one, but you will meet Sandra's mom, you will meet Cameron, Dustin, and Deborah's mom, um, which is going to be chaos. You will meet. No, I want to save that one. I'll save the other two. But yeah, you will meet their mom. The moms will meet each other, which is an exciting thing. Um, so yeah, I would say stay tuned on that in terms of like we have some really exciting new characters who are gonna come in and shake up the world of our characters, but also add, I think, some much needed context to a lot of our characters. I think we did a really good job this season of focusing on our core cast, but also integrating some people that heightens the season, makes the season more exciting. So I'm very proud of the work that we did, not only with our core cast, but people that we are bringing on to our final season. Um, in terms of what our final season looks like, it will be 8 episodes again. Some of them, I can't promise that all the episodes will be longer or around the same, but what we always try to do is I tell all of my writers, get it on the page. If we need to cut back, we'll cut back, but like I don't want to stick to a certain page length. Although sometimes I feel like we should, because by the time we get our set, it's just like you have this 7 page scene and they're always so great. But being on set, if you've been on set, a 7 page scene is a beast. It is a beast, especially if you have, I'm thinking back to like 204, if you have a scene with Dustin and Sandra and Jeremiah, or if you have a scene with Jeremiah, Daniel, Rufus, Juanita, and we threw in Romario at the last minute. Romario was not supposed to be in that scene in the first season, episode 6, but when you have scenes like that with so many characters speaking at once, and that in both scenes we had physical sort of aspects for both 106 and 204, so balancing all those pieces. But I will say every episode feels good, it feels right. We are ready to go. Boom, we are ready to go. Our entire season, all 8 episodes are revised. I am still touching the finale. The finale is not it's so different than the way I started it, but I'm so excited. to get back on set and to finish out this beautiful chapter with all of these people that you've come to love, I hope, or relate to in some way. Um, Again, if you're just now joining if you are just now joining the chat, we are talking all things Love Undone, specifically our third and final season of Love Undone. If you have any specific questions about any of the characters, seasons one, season two, I'll even answer questions about Unconditional Love if you're a day one fan, or about where we're headed for our final season. Feel free to throw them in the chat. Or if you have a question related to writing or anything, feel free to drop those as well. It doesn't have to be only Love Undone specific questions. But again, we are crowdfunding for our third and final season, and our phase one deadline is September 22nd. So that is our phase one deadline to reach our goal of 10K. So we hope you'll help us spread the word. If you don't have to give, you can always hit that share button. Let folks know about the show. I always say that. Let folks know what Love Undone is, what you love about it. We always love hearing what you love about our show. So we are always appreciative of people telling other people about Love Undone. And September 22nd is our phase one goal to reach 10K. And hopefully we'll be back on set next year so that we can bring our final season, our exciting, crazy, chaotic, romantic, exciting final season to all of you. The show has been elevating familiar arguments and conflicts. Do you have new ideas on how to portray reconciliation? Okay, this heart is in my way. Or their connections, writing wise and directorial? That's a great question. I think it's always hard because some part of my brain is like, we've sort of gone. I don't want it to be like, okay, they're arguing about the same thing again, because sometimes it can get there. What does resolution look like? I think with this season, in particular, the characters that I'm glad you asked that question, Shaquan, because I think this is the best way that I can apply it, is with Daniel and Elijah. And I'm going to talk around this so I don't give anything away. But we had a goal for the two of them, a very clear goal. And about halfway through, it was sort of heading into that direction where it could have been like there was going to be another sort of blowout like there was in 207. And I think we as a writer's room, the way we were able to handle how they sort of handled that conflict is something I'm really proud of, in terms of like, it doesn't always have to look like this. Yes, the arguing and the yelling is fun. I love that kind of stuff, but it can also look like this, depending on the growth pattern, depending on where we've taken this character on this journey. It's not going to be the same for everybody. Some couples are just toxic, and every single time they're going to handle conflict the same way. If this is a character, in this case, who has been through therapy and has developed ways, although again, that's not always going to look the same, but has developed ways to sort of handle conflict resolution. It's going to look different, or we hope it'll look different that each time that comes up. But again, it really just depends on the character. That's writing wise. That one, I will say, like, I'm very aware of, I don't always want it to look like this. And if it does, what sort of pattern have we exposed with, like, okay, it's always going to be like this because they haven't resolved this piece that's the root of the problem. In terms of from a director standpoint, I'm always learning as a director. So where I started off in the first season, I was big on, I have to cover the scene this way. Like, this has to be shown, and this has to be a wide shot, and this has to be a close up, or this has to be a medium shot. That's great. Be very prepared in terms of, what you want your scene or what you want your episode to look like, but don't be over prepared that you get on set and you're overthinking and you're mechanical with everything. You always want to leave room for interpretation, working with actors. One thing I will always say, we have really great actors that come on set and totally change my mind of what I thought the scene was about, and that's the power of collaboration. Sometimes people come on and I'm just like, I didn't see it that way. That was, that was really good in terms of choices that actors made. So for me, approaching conflict and family and any sort of arguments on our show, it's really about what is the problem, who are we using in the scene to address it, right? Whether it's 204, um, we've established that Dustin and Sandra are back in each other's lives, sparks are flying. Now we're going to bring in this one character, Jeremiah, that's going to expose the whole thing, and everyone's now forced to sort of answer, what are we doing, right? Is this the guy you're going to end up with? We're supposed to be together, but you're sort of sharing time with him. So for me, it's all about zoning in on that emotion, and letting the characters drive the story. Your characters have to drive the story. So if there's a big moment, like for me, like at the end, it was important for me to stay on Sandra, even if Jeremiah was talking and had something to say. That moment at the very end, when Jeremiah is leaving, everything is reading on Sandra's face. Everything is reading on her face. How she feels about the moment, sort of balancing like, hey, I feel like shit. And then on the opposite, the same thing for Jeremiah. He's just now, this always gets me. He's just now finding out that, yes, she had an abortion, but she had an abortion because she thought you was a shit. And she didn't want to raise a baby with you. So, like, for me, another big emotional moment. Why would you want to have the camera on anyone else but Jeremiah while he takes that in? So like that's why we sit with him. He has that moment. He is sort of um chewing on that, if you will, of, okay, this truth was just exposed. It's hitting me like a ton of bricks. And now I want the audience to feel like they've been hit with a ton of bricks as well. So, like, really zoning in on the characters to lead the scene. I will say, I will say, on an independent set, sometimes there are factors that may contribute to a scene that are outside of your control, right? Like if you're I'm not a person who's like, get it in post. We're gonna get it while we're here, because if I can't fix it in post, then you don't have a scene that you can give to your audience. But like really trying to be intentional of, hey, let's get this moment while we're here. But maybe there was a lawnmower that we thought wasn't loud enough and is now destroying a take that you've enjoyed, and you may have to move or alter. That's just the nature of what it's been. But I try to be super intentional about getting everything in the moment, making sure we're good. However, there are those times that things may pop up that may throw your scene off completely. Um, I hope that answered the question in terms of new ideas. I do just try to let the characters lead the scene and lead the story. I feel like that's the best way you can really get um you can really get to the root and to the essence of the story you're trying to tell. Really great question, Shaquan. You are leaving me breathless. I love it. So yes, if you have any questions, if you just joined the chat, we are talking all things Love Undone in our final season, our third and final season of Love Undone. And yes, if you have any specific questions about the first two seasons of Love Undone, where things are going with our final season, or anything Unconditional Love, more than happy to answer any questions you may have as well. You mentioned collaboration. Crew-wise, are there any new faces and talents you kind of follow, are interested in? The writing room was amazing. Are you bringing director, camera, or sound? In terms of our crew, I love our crew so much. So my hope is that the same crew will come back. In terms of directors, I don't want to announce anybody until like things are confirmed. However, there are a couple of new directors that will be joining us in our final season. A couple from the cast. Um, can't say which ones until things sort of happen. But one thing about me, I am I'm so happy when people come to me and say, Joseph, I want to direct, if it's someone on the show. If they've never directed before, um, I'm always happy when people take an interest in other things. And I always try my best, the way that I can, to help people grow in terms of new things that they want to do. Same thing with the writer's room. You can't, although I wrote the first season by myself, that wasn't like my ideal option. But we were in a pandemic. It was sort of a lot of things going on. Didn't even know if the show was going to make it to YouTube. There was so many factors going on. But I will say, like with Unconditional Love, the best thing ever was bringing on Thomas and Hanae. Um, Oh, who just expanded the world, who just made the world so much more rich. Same thing with Love Undone with all of our writers. Like, you need the experiences and the voices of other people. It can't just be one singular voice. Because oftentimes, most times, 99% of the times, their ideas are the best ideas, right? So it's a really collaborative process. But yes, there are new people who will be directing this season. That I'm excited about. Um I hope it ends up that they do direct. In terms of crew, like I said, I love our crew, and hope that we get to continue with the same crew going forward. Whew. Um Great questions. So yes, another thing that I do want to touch on as well, later on, throughout our crowdfunding process as well, we do have another perk that we will invite folks to our table read. You can't stay for the table read part of it, but after the table read as well, for the folks that get us to a certain threshold, we'll be invited to a sort of separate part of the table read where you can ask questions, whether it's to anybody on the cast or any writers. Last season, I think all of the writers joined, which is fun because we have our little personal table reads when we break story, and when we also break our episodes in the season, which, if I get everybody's permission, I will share. I will share some of those table reads. I We all have characters that we love reading for. Our table reads are always fun, but it's an additional thing to like hear the actual people who are bringing the show to life read the script, to see what how their reactions on their faces. It's always exciting, at least for me, to hear. But then it's also very helpful in the writing process, in terms of you get to hear maybe things that aren't working or any loopholes. Luckily, by the time we get to our table read, I feel like that's a very small thing. Like, maybe I'll hear something, I'm like, oh, maybe the way I wrote that wasn't the way that I want that to stay in there. Um, but yeah, our table reads are always fun, and I always look forward to the cast table reads as well. So that's another thing that we are offering as well. And if you have no idea why I mentioned that, as I mentioned at the top of the call, we are crowdfunding for our third and final season, and September 22nd is our phase one deadline to reach our goal of 10K, which is in 38 days. So we have 38 days to get to our phase one goal. So if you could help us spread the word, anybody who loves romance, family drama, web series, let them know about our show. Tag them in our show, have them watch our show. And we hope that you'll support us in that way if you can't donate to our final season. How big is the cast this season? That's a great question. I was just working on that. I should know that off the top of my head. I believe this season we're up to 34. I believe it's 34, and that includes folks who are returning, and then we have 7 new characters. But I think it's a total of 34 folks. 35 if you include me, because I will be joining the final season and acting in a bigger capacity than I did in the second season, with actual words this time. So, but I believe it's 34. And I was just reading that scene the other day. It's a very it's a very good scene. It's a very good episode. It's a very good season. We have a very exciting yet emotional. It's a very emotional season. I'll say that the season premiere is very emotional right up until I want to say 7. I mean, we always have those moments of levity and like um quiet and alone moments for some of our characters, but it's a very emotional season. We have a lot of things to answer with all of our characters, but as I mentioned on another creator chat, this is not going to be a story where by the end you get a perfect bow on all of our relationships because it's just not realistic, right? Some things are going to be left for interpretation. Like at the end, you can assume A and B went on to do this and on to do this and on to do this. And I encourage you after you watch the final season to share your stories with us of where you feel certain characters went. But like it wasn't realistic to say this is a rubber stamp. There are some characters, however, like you will get an ending for them naturally. Some of them very earlier in the season. You'll get an answer on sort of where things are going for them. Some characters do drop off halfway through. A couple drop off for the first episode. So yeah, throughout the entire season, we're really just trying to tie up loose ends, but also leaving that room knowing that life does go on after Love Undone does end. Any ideas how to film these emotional scenes? How do you plot out elevating emotions for the audience and actors? Have you learned any new techniques to bring things out? I would say I'm reading a really good book right now by Pete Chapman. It's oh my god, I'm gonna forget the title, but it's like I think it's called like Director's Handbook. Um, and there's a portion of that book that does touch on working with actors. I'm also reading a book by Mary Lou Belli and Bethany Rooney. Of course, I don't know the title. It's literally sitting on my shelf. I'm gonna Google it because I want to give you the title in case anybody's interested um, in reading that. Directors tell the story. I should know that because I've picked that book up twice in the last week. So I think the techniques I'm learning is like how to better communicate with actors, which is like crucial when working on a scene. Like I've really built up in terms of me. I consider myself a lifelong learner and student, so I'm always learning. Whether it's a YouTube video, I always tell people if there's something you don't know, don't be ashamed to YouTube it because you may have an idea of it. But sometimes, if you're like me, you just need to see a visual of, hey, oh, this is what that looks like, or this is what that is. But for me, my focus with these two books that I'm learning is like how to communicate with actors, how to take an actor in a different direction, right? And not just say, because sometimes, you know, you may get do it this way or do it this way, or, you know, we want you to be sad, but like really developing techniques to better build that toolkit at working with actors. In terms of like the technical side, I feel like I said, that's like you're learning every day with that. In terms of um, with our set, we are a very small set in terms of we have a very small crew. So like what you get on our set is obviously not what you're gonna get on a set that has $1 million budget and has all department heads. And with our show, it's really collaborative process, but also very small in terms of we all build off of each other. So for me, I think with emotion, it's just about, you know, what's your intention with the scene? What's the objective? What does character A want? What does character B want? Now, how do you talk with actors to really help them give their best performances? So that's what I'm building on. It's something I've always had, but something I'm building on um, with um, with the two books I'm reading. The Pete Chapman one, I'll give you the title as well. And his journey is very inspiring. Like he literally talks about his journey from NYU, getting into film school, leaving film school, and then when you leave film school, it's like you're assuming you're going to have a job in the industry, and it's like everything the opposite of that. Can't leave school thinking you're going to get a job in the industry. I certainly am not working in the field that I have a degree in, but very inspiring story on how he landed his first episode of television, and how now he's sort of consistently he's directed Blackish, he's directed Love Life, he's directed Yellow Jackets, he's done many episodes of Grownish. um I just watched the show. Oh, he did Unprisoned. He had 2 episodes. The finale was great. He's done Unprisoned, Grey's Anatomy. He's done a lot of episodes of Grey's Anatomy. So really his journey, um day by day, of like graduating from film school, trying to do a feature film, trying to crowdfund for that feature film, all the way through to his first episode, building relationships, which is really important, networking, letting people know, like, hey, this is what we're doing on Love Undone. This is what we're trying to do with the story. So, yeah, the title of the book is Transitions, a Director's Journey, a Motivational Handbook. So I would say get that book, and also get the book by Bethany Rooney, and Mary Lou Belli, Directors Tell the Story. And there's also a book that's specific to working with actors as well. That one I don't know off the top of my head, but more than happy to follow up in any of our chats to give you those books. So yes, we will be wrapping up soon. I want to thank everybody who joined our creator chat today. If you have any final questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. If you're watching this after we've gone off, feel free to send any of your questions or leave us a comment about the show, or any questions you have about our final season, any questions you have about our crowdfunding campaign, any questions about how you can help. Feel free to send us an email, which is in our description, but loveundone@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter. I still call it Twitter, Instagram. You can find us, and feel free to leave us a comment or send us a DM on any specific questions you may have around the show, or what's coming in future seasons. Oh, I just said future seasons. Don't take that and run. Future season, period. Not seasons. Um, but yes, one thing I'll do now as we wrap up with all of our creator calls, I just want to um, go through one by one and thank every single person who has contributed to our crowdfunding campaign so far. Just want to say thank you and say your name. If I pronounce your name wrong, I apologize in advance. I realize I've been doing that with some people. Please correct me on how to pronounce your name if I do say it. But again, just really thankful for the support. Some of you donated twice. Some of you have been supporting us since the very first season. So again, just want to say thank you to Jasmine Wilson, aka my girl Jazz, James Magruder, Kevin Hagan, Blanca Texera, Patrick Mensa, Bawadi Walker, Driscoll DeCanto, Quanda Smith, Mary Flaherty, Thomas Mason Jr., King of Games, Imani Dameron, Will Fulton, Kelly Winston, Benjamin Bryant, Patrick Sutton, Dominique McCoy, Jillian, Mark, Joan Fulmore, Nilza Feliciano, Alize Cabral, Dorothy Baxter, Aisha Curtis, Ines Cabral Goncalves, Paula Correa, Erica De Silva, Tanya Cabral, Allison Murchison, Sean Radley, Nancy Texera, Corey Dameron, LaJarvis Stevens, Lionel Jackson, Nikesha Amato, Jade Rodriguez, Dylan Shea, Carolyn Grant, Lamar Neal, Carmen Hardaway, Ron Artis Jr., Hanae Belser, Evelyn Merrick, Maria Judice, Laurie DeMarco, Danielle O'Connor, Bree Bolden, Patricia Lyons, Mariah Carvalho, Christopher, and Terry Gresham. So just want to say thank you. And on the mention of Thomas's name, if you are looking for another good show to watch, this Thursday, August 15th at 9 p.m. on Clio TV and next week on TV One, be sure to watch season 2 of Tough Love Atlanta. Tough Love Atlanta. If you don't know what Tough Love is, please go find out on YouTube. You can binge the OG show, Tough Love New York, Tough Love LA, Tough Love Atlanta. The second season is airing this Thursday at 9 p.m. on Clio TV. I hope I got the time right. I will be there. I will be watching. I hope you guys will be watching as well, to make sure you support Tough Love Atlanta. Okay. So, are you even thinking about new projects? Are you working on anything on the side? No, I am not working on anything else. My focus right now is our final season of Love Undone. Once I'm in like production mode, that takes like all of my time and energy. Crowdfunding is a full time job outside of the full time job that I have. So for me, if I'm lucky to get a word down on anything else, that's a really good day. But it has been a while. Once I go into production mode with producing a season, like that's my focus through to the finish. We had just finished the writers' room. Obviously, I was writing. We didn't just finish, but I was obviously very active in terms of writing wise then. Then now I'm in pre-production with crowdfunding. Um, I have not been thinking about anything else, but I do have a bunch of scripts. There are many ideas, not any that I want to produce independently, like Love Undone or Unconditional Love, but definitely a lot of scripts that I'm very excited about that need my attention. I have not paid a lot of love to those scripts. Some scripts, one script that I wrote in 2015 that was supposed to be a feature that I'm thinking about revisiting. So yes, always stuff, always trying to be creative, but at the moment, trying to get Love Undone, our third and final season, produced. Our crowdfunding campaign is still open. I will put the link in the chat. Um, I will put the link in the chat if you want to share that, or if you want to support or share it on your pages after this live is over. Our phase one deadline is September 22nd for our phase one goal of 10,000. We just hit our 5K goal, which we released our Lori sneak peek. So if you have not checked out our Lori sneak peek, it is on our YouTube page as well as all of our social media pages. So make sure to check that out. We've had some other sneak peeks. We've taken them off of our social media. So the way to see those is to subscribe to the newsletter. So you always want to make sure you check out our pages while our sneak peeks are still up. Again, I will include the link to the newsletter as well. So if you want to sign up for the newsletter, please do. We have another one dropping. They normally drop. Sorry. They normally drop the first of each month. We'll drop a new newsletter. So both of those descriptions are there, but we'll also include them in this chat. And then again, if you follow us on any social media, you can find those there. If you're not on social media, always in our YouTube page, I include any of the descriptions to anything. So feel free to subscribe to the newsletter where we do dive into the writers behind the show who work so hard to create the world, and then also the people who help bring who help develop and are living in the world as these characters. So again, just want to say thank you to every person who tuned in today, for supporting Love Undone, for supporting our final season. For supporting our show from the very beginning. I am very excited about our final season, as I've said. Very excited for everyone to watch it. I miss being on set. I do not say that often because with our show, by the time we start, I'm ready to be. It's so, although it's very exciting, it like takes a lot out of you producing an independent series. But I will say, as of today, I am very eager and anxious to be back on set creating, just because we had so much fun peeling the layers back with this final season. And I'm just so excited. And it's crazy because in a couple of weeks, actually in 3 weeks, it'll be 2 years since we've been on. It'll be 2 years since our first day of our second season. So like there are some actors I have not seen in 2 years. So also missing them and missing working with them. And then before you know it, in March, it'll be 2 years since the season has aired. So I don't want it to be 5 years before we bring you our final season. I want to be able to get back on set and create with these brilliant artists who bring the show to you. So again, thank you so much for joining today. Tell someone about Love Undone if you haven't already. Rewatch Love Undone and prepare yourself. even as the creator, I'm always rewatching because I also edit the show, and I'm like, I'm always looking for ways or things to do differently. But I'm always proud of what we've created and what we have coming. I want to give a shout out to everyone who works on this show and all of you who watch and support. The comment section on, on season 2 is my favorite thing ever. If you have a moment in your day, please go watch. Please go read the comments on all of the episodes. They are a different show in themselves, which is always exciting because we love hearing what you think about the show. So again, thank you for your support. Our crowdfunding campaign for phase 1 is open until September 22nd. The crowdfunding campaign will not close. I think some people are like, is it going to close on the 22nd? No, we're just hoping that we reach our phase 1 goal by that time so that we can move forward to the next phase. And as I mentioned to you, be back on set a year from today, creating this final season for all of you. Any questions, as always, feel free to reach out on any of our social media pages. And thank you so much for joining today and for supporting Love Undone and our journey. Thank you so much.